real stories.
Real stories.
From real midwives. This is Head on View.
Day in the life. She said what? These are our stories. Hello and welcome to another episode of Head on View Podcast. Thanks for coming back to listen.
Thank you.
So, good news today. We have Penny with us. Yay! So, I am Carly and I've got
Laura
and
Penny.
So, as you know, me and Laura, let's have a little get to know Penny so we all know who everyone is.
Tell us about yourself, Penny.
Hey guys, I'm Penny. I work as a nurse and a midwife, and I'm not from the UK or the US. I'm from Australia.
Oh, that's a shame.
And I work at a major Melbourne hospital. I've been a nurse for almost over 10 years, a midwife for 5, and I've just started maternal child health, and I've been doing that for almost a year.
Cool. Loving it. So today we are talking about expectations of a midwife. So as in like what we expected and how it really is in real life as working as a midwife. So I think, as we all know, I really didn't have much clue to what a midwife did before I became a midwife. Apart from babies, that was it. And then obviously when you start studying and, go into placements, you get an idea. Me personally, I felt like the main importance was kind of placed on birth suite. And it was all like, oh my God, all about births and you're counting your births. And that's why, where all these amazing stories happen. Yeah. And, that's kind of where the main, that's what I felt anyway, the main importance was placed on that. And then as working as a midwife, there's so much more than just the actual delivery. Yeah, there's so much more. That is such a small part. And even for the women, that's such a small part of their motherhood journey. That's where all the importance is placed.
Yeah, definitely. I remember my first lecture in midwifery, and they're like, everyone put your hand up if you became a midwife because you like babies. And people put their hands up. I'm looking around the room thinking, really? That's why you became a midwife? Why didn't you just become a special care nursery nurse or just a nurse? But there were people who seriously just loved babies so much they wanted to be around babies all the time, and that's why they were doing the course. And then other girls were like, we just want to help women give birth. And I was like, I don't want to do either of those things. Is there an optional extra? Am I in the right degree? So I think my perception was not of birth. It was actually sort of more of a global thing, like breastfeeding and getting me my drugs for pain relief, like helping women. And I couldn't believe that I didn't think it was all about birth, but I soon learned that I was in a cohort of women, cohort. I'll not say that word again. Cohort of women who thought it was all about birth, home birth, natural birth, vaginal birth.
Yeah, but I don't think that's unusual. That is. Whereas, I think we need to remember that there is so much more to me. I mean, the whole thing, midwife, that sort of means being with women. Yeah. So it's the whole
person.
Yeah, the whole person. But also starting with, there's so much even antenatally from becoming pregnant, being pregnant, just dealing with your normal pregnancy. When you're in an antenatal appointment and someone will come in and they'll be like, oh my God, my hands are hurting. I've got a sore back. My hips are hurting. I need to pee all the time. I feel sick. And you're just like, oh, that's just normal pregnancy side effects.
Exactly.
Sorry, this is pregnancy. This is great. You're telling me all this because, one day you might tell me something that's not normal and I need to know. Yeah. But when they come all these things and you're just like, oh God, sorry.
My back hurts and they want you to wave a magic wand and make it stop.
And although, we can try and give you advice and hints and tips of things that can lessen this, sometimes pregnancy just really bloody sucks for people. Yeah. And sometimes you are in pain or you're itching or you feel sick for 8 months. And the only way to stop that is to get that baby out. And obviously you have to wait. Yeah.
So, Laura, I'm actually one of the people that you didn't like in your lecture theatre. Was that when you said midwifery?
I was like, what?
Because I actually did love babies and I wanted to have a more happier work environment than general nursing. So I actually plan to work in the special care nursery. How things have changed in 5 years.
Yeah. And which is funny because you don't work in there anymore.
No, I don't.
No. So is that because you sort of found that working with babies wasn't for you, or was it more the workplace or the people? Or
I remember as you were saying about birth suite, my first lecture was, this is VEs. I'm like, oh, is this what midwifery is all about? I thought it was, picking up a baby and changing a nappy and then putting it in the bath. And it was a bit of an eye opener, but I just enjoy teaching women about their babies and helping them to be strong people. And
yeah, I kind of love how that, we all sort of came into this thinking, oh, this is what we're going to love and what we're going to do. And then you all end up doing like such
Something
different things. But I also love that about the industry, like not just with midwifery, but with nursing as well. Like there's so many avenues, but even with midwifery, because I feel it gets very pigeonholed and you say, oh, I'm a midwife. And they're like, oh, so you deliver babies? Like just the kind of the
I've had
Joe Blow on the street. And you're just like, well, just like how nursing, there's a gazillion things you can do. Like
how many babies did you deliver today?
My
shift's only 8 hours long. What do you think?
The babies just pop out every hour.
They're all just lining up there.
It's like it's a factory.
But I think it's definitely really good to let people know, especially if they're thinking about becoming a midwife, that there are more options. Like you don't just have to work in a delivery suite in a hospital. I mean, great if you love that because someone's there, but there are options as well, because you get people and they're just like, I'm not enjoying this. I hate this. Like, oh, is this the wrong career for me? And it's like, no, wait, because there's so many options.
And I think when you're a student, you have to go through all those clinical areas to pass certain exams and pass certain clinical competencies and, get, your little book ticked off. So you have to do all those areas.
But also,
and you sort of feel like you're stuck in this. I'm always going to have to do, rotate through birth suite. I'm always going to have to rotate through special care, or, like I got to a certain point in birth suite where I was like, oh, this is for the dogs. Like, I can't stand this. I don't like this at all. This causes me an enormous amount of stress. And I come to work like really anxious and stressed already. And I would stand in birth suite at handover. I could feel my heart rate. My heart rate's going up just thinking about it. I hated it so much. I got to a point where I was like, I can't work in here anymore.
Did you find as a student that you felt the same?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all the time.
When I was a student, I just was like, I want this shift to end. I hate this. I hate this.
And did you do your student placements at the same hospital where you ended up working, or no, different?
A little bit different.
Yeah.
Like where I work now is where I did my last first placement. And the problem is I got my grad year and there's only 2 weeks in between when I finished my placement and got my grad year.
Did you feel it was hard, people seeing you different as like a student to now I'm a qualified midwife?
People treated me as if I'd been there longer and they were leaving me alone.
Oh, okay, because they'd been so used to seeing you around and they were like,
seeing me all the time.
Yeah.
So they thought I knew what I was doing. And
but I did feel that. I know, like when you get assigned a student, and it's like, I love working with students, so no drama. But people will say, they'll be like, student, whatever the name is, oh my God, she's great. She's so good. She's so competent, rara. And you do kind of give them, especially if you're working with them and you know it's their fourth year, it's their last, you try and give them a little bit more space, I guess, to sort of work independently. And then I guess if you then see that person the next week and they're there in their scrubs and you're like, oh, they know what they're doing. But I guess we kind of need to remember that, no, they are still very new. And although as a student, they were fully competent because essentially they had you there with you the whole time. So if anything went wrong, you could be like,
you can suddenly administer drugs and make clinical decisions that you can sign off on.
Sign the CTGs.
And they put me straight into birth suite. I didn't even get a break. And there was at one point there where I was like, I can't do this. There has to be other things that I can do. Yeah. And that's when I found clinic and I did like an extra long rotation in clinic. And I was like, oh, this is what I love this. And of course I love breastfeeding and teaching women to breastfeed. And now I do a heap of home visiting and I love home visiting. Home visiting is like domiciliary is the best.
I just realized we've had this music playing the whole time in the background. And I thought, hang on.
I was like, oh, I like this song.
I know. And I just thought, I better stop this music because it's probably not like, But anyway, so sure no one will mind that a little bit of music's on in the background.
It's always a bit of a surprise. Last time there was a cat jumping on.
I know. Well, because I'm just saying, like I always have music on in the background. So kind of just like.
It only dawned on me because I was like, oh, I like that song.
Yeah, that's the same. Like I felt like we had a quiet moment and I was like, oh wait, I forgot to stop the music. Hopefully that's fine.
Speaking of shifts, I think it's really important that we all actually came from different areas know, so Laura, you started off as you did Bachelor of Mid, Carly did Bachelor of Nursing and Mid.
Yeah, I did the
I've
double.
come through the postgrad, so we've all had different experiences.
And we will do an ep about that as well, kind of like your different options, like how to be a midwife, because there are a lot of different ways. To get into it.
Definitely. I reckon a good thing we could talk about now is maybe shift work. What did you think?
Well, I guess for me, so, you know, I came in as a mature age student, and the area I was working in before, like in a newsroom, I was actually doing permanent night shift where I came from. So
you're always doing that.
So to me, like, I was already sort of doing nights, and I got used to, you know, working a lot. So actually for my first year of study, I was working full time and studying full time. So I'd be like working night shift, and then I'd finish at like 6:37 in the morning, and then I'd go straight to lectures that would be starting at 8. I was like being crazy. And then like, you know, if you'd have a break in between your lectures during the day, like 1 or 2 days, I would actually go to my car and sleep and just have a sleep in my car in the car park.
That's crazy.
And then, you know, because we had crazily like just purchased a house a year before I was like, oh, let's go back to uni. And so I had to work that job because I just couldn't afford, but it actually got to the end of the first year study. I was just like, I cannot do this. This is so hard. I was like, I can't work full time and study full. I was just like, it took me a year because I kept thinking,
one day I would have been like, this is bullshit.
I kept thinking I could stick it out, and I was actually hoping I'd get made redundant too. But like, I think they knew that I was studying, so it was kind of like a waiting game, and they won because I couldn't do it. So for me, like, I have done, you know, the traditional 9 to 5, like when I was temping, working in an office, and to be honest, I hated it. I think I've never drunk so much alcohol in my life, or maybe when I was young, but but like literally, like I remember like when I was working 9 to 5, I would probably come home every day and have like a bottle of wine with dinner, and I was just like it was just draining on my life. So for me, I love shift work because I don't like the 9 to 5, but I know for some people who will just find nights like really hard and they hate it, and some students as well. I did night shift as a student, but I know some hospitals. I spoke to some students, they'd be like, I've only done like day shift Monday to Friday, and I'm like, what? That's not.
And because as a student, you're working full time. That's one of the things I found hardest is that when I did clinical placements, they're expecting you to work full-time hours so you can get up your clinical hours and pass all your competencies and get all your births. And that's what I found hardest, because when I was doing clinical placement, my children were very young, and I was trying to get them to daycare, and we only had one car, and like pick them up. It was just, this is ridiculous. But then once I started working, what I like about shift work is that you can work for 5 days straight, and then you can get like 4 days off. Depending on how many hours you work in a fortnight. But that's what I like about it. Nights, I don't actually mind doing the night shift. Now I've worked out how to stay up.
Like how to get sort of your sleep pattern.
I sleep during the day. Like I'm someone who can just sleep 6-7 hours. The actual doing of the night shifts, I don't mind, and I can do it. It's recovering from night shifts, because like fucking kids are in my ear asking for stuff, and then I'm taking to basketball training, and I'm trying to wake up, and I'm older.
I do think as you get older, and I do think as you start. So I did permanent nights for so long, and
I know you and I are the same age, but kids have added at least 20 years.
And I think they just like probably in the last few months, like I stopped doing night shift as in permanent night shift, and I've done a couple every sort of sporadically, and just doing those sort of couple when I'm not used to doing them, my God, like it was pretty bloody tough.
Night shifts, the three of us never would have really become friends, that's how we met.
Exactly.
You don't do nights anymore, do you?
No, well, I think I am. The plan is coming out soon. I think I have to do nights, unfortunately. I'm a legitimate night owl, so I...
So Penny's just breaking her microphone, but it's all good. I'm pretty sure it should still work.
What was I saying?
That you are a night owl.
I'm a night owl.
So if you're not working, like, do you normally stay up to like
midnight?
Yeah. Okay. Well, to me, midnight, I feel like that's not a night owl. That's just like
maybe one or two if I just have to work the
like,
following day.
I would be.
It's just like late.
I'm happy to be sitting on my couch and watching, binge watching.
But it's very different sitting on your couch watching Netflix to 3 a.m. because you can't stop watching the next step of whatever.
It's
compared to having to think and concentrate and work. work. Yeah.
3 a.m. is
Yeah.
hit the wall.
I think the worst bit is the following day when you have to get up and you know you have to work and you're like sitting and you're like, ugh, and there's dishes that need to be done.
To be honest, sometimes if I did a big thing of night shifts in a row, like I would do nothing but work and sleep. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like we'd have a lot of Uber Eats, like
Yeah.
but
I
that's
just don't
life.
I think most people, when they get into midwifery, they think, we can do shift work. But I think it really depends on how much help you have at home, what else you've got going on at home. When I did my grad year, I had, a partner that wasn't very supportive, and night shift was hard for him, as in he was affected by it. Mate, I'm the one doing it, but it's because I wasn't present in the same capacity I'm present. And I think that's something people need to realize if they get into a job like this. It's not just being at work all the time, it's that you're giving yourself emotionally a lot. Like you're being compassionate to people who you'd rather punch in the face sometimes. And that's
how it is.
That's just how it is. Sometimes you just have to be like, well, this is my job. I'm here to help this person. Even if you're not in the right headspace, you're still doing it. So you get home, and it's not like a normal 9-to-5 job where you've got home and you're like, oh, I've been at work all day. Like it's been really hard because I've been at work.
It's like emotionally draining and mentally
so much
draining
can
as
happen
well.
in a
Yeah.
shift, like women cry, babies turn blue, people bleed.
Yeah.
Like your job is so stressful, and then on top of that, you come home.
And I think it's not like as well, if you go, oh, I'm working 9 to 5 in office, you can clock out at 5, boom, done. The amount of times, I can even count the amount of times you've had to stay back because things have happened. Or,
because you've been with the woman for 8 hours.
I mean,
she's about to push a baby out.
To be honest, I'm normally pretty keen to go home, so don't do that. But obviously, if something major has happened, like when emergencies are happening and, you're like, fuck, someone's about to die, you can't just be like, okay, clocking off now, see ya, bye. You have to stay and make sure that's okay. And
I don't know what you guys are like, but sometimes I've had a day where, like, especially if I've been out on the road and I've visited people, I've had like 3 women cry on me, or I've had to readmit someone, or 2 babies that have to be readmitted, or they're sick, or I get home and I'm just like, oh.
I come home and I'm mentally and physically drained.
Yeah, like I sit on the couch and I'm like, I can't
move, can't do
move,
anything.
But I have to move because the kid's like, what's for dinner? And they haven't done anything I've asked them to do or something like that. But
yeah, that's why you don't have kids.
Says the midwife.
I think the main thing is with all this shift work and the job that we do is that you need a good support network. So you need to, if you've got great friends that work 9 to 5, that's awesome. And at times they don't understand when they have a birthday party planned for Saturday, but you're working the Arvo and then you're working the Sunday morning. So find yourself a good group of midwifery friends that work shift work so they know what your day is like.
Yeah.
Because if you tell, Joe Blow, this is what happened on my shift, I had to readmit a patient, and they're like, oh, okay.
But also just someone you can talk about the stuff that happened, because I feel people understand, especially when you've had like some traumatic shit go down. Like, I know I've come home in the morning, or I'll call my husband on the way home and just be like, oh my God, and like just like crying on the phone, and then I'll get home and I'll literally just get straight into bed and just have a massive cry. And he'll be like, oh my God, what happened? And then sometimes he'll be like, what? And I can try and explain to him, and he's like, yeah. And then sometimes it's not even something really bad. Like it's just, like I remember once someone was like to me, wait, so are you crying over CTG stickers? And I was like, yes. Yes, God damn it, I'm crying over CTG stickers.
They make me very sad.
Like, sometimes you just need to cry, and it's not even over like, oh my God, I thought someone was going to die, or we did this research. It is over CTG stickers.
It's because when I went to visit someone the other day, the mum said to me, all of you give so much of yourselves. Like, it's such an amazing job. And I was like, oh yeah. And she's like, don't you think it is? And I'm like, no, like, don't get me wrong. It is an amazing job, but it's like when you see someone doing a job that you've never done before, you're like, wow, that must be really interesting. There's always something about that job that you're like, well, sometimes it sucks.
For me, I'm so glad I went back and did this back and studied. Like, despite all the sometimes negative aspects, there are a lot of positive aspects, and I do love it. Like, I do actually love it.
And I think if you're thinking of becoming a midwife or a nurse midwife or anything like that, when people ask me, like, what do you think? Like, I had a patient the other day. She's like, I'd love to be a midwife.
I'm always just like, do it.
I'm like, do it.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, you'll no.
If you don't do it, you'll always be like, oh, I could have done that.
Should not,
Yeah, and when you think about the time, because I remember when I was looking at this degree and I was like, 4 years. I was like, bloody hell, like 4 years, that's like such a long time. And I remember someone said to me, they said, and I can't remember who said this, or maybe I said it to myself, I don't know. And so like, yeah, I give good advice. I could have said it to myself, who knows? But someone was like, okay, so it's 4 years, but what if you don't do this, what are you going to be doing in 4 years time? And I was like, I'll probably still be here hating this guy that I work with. The field I was in, the office I was working, there was kind of nowhere else for me to go. There was managerial positions, whatever I could have gone to, but I was just like wasn't interested in them for the extra couple of dollars. And I think I was actually getting paid more than my manager at the time because I'd been there so long. So I was like, he's doing more work than I am. And I was like, am I going to stay here for another 4 years doing this?
Yes.
And I was like, nah, something needs to change.
And I think even women who, like, I had some women in my class that were much older.
Yeah.
Like they were in their 50s.
Yeah.
And they were doing it. And I think the biggest struggle they had was like, oh, you know, like, oh, it's another 3 years of my life and then it'll be 53 or 54. But they got through the degree. But I think the biggest problem for them is once they were in hospitals, people thought they were senior midwives.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they were like, you can't be a grad. You were too old to be a grad. But I don't think that should deter people because grads, I just think at the moment when I'm working with graduates, they just have so much knowledge and so much to give. If I'm stuck with something that I haven't done in a long time, I'm like, oh, where's the grad?
Yeah, 100%. Because
They'll know how to do this.
they have essentially just come out of this, environment
so
where they've been, learning and practicing and making sure they do things right. And then, you know, when you've been
the shortcut.
like in any sort of job that you're in, you get a bit relaxed. And
Their face lights up when they tell you something because they know it.
Yeah, the best thing I think now is once you're a bit more experienced, I feel like I can enjoy my job a lot more now. Like my stress levels aren't as high. Like once I've reached a mark, I can do my job and I can make clinical decisions.
And you go and you sort of look forward to, I mean, not always, but sometimes you look forward to going to work. I mean, it does also depend who you're working with. But I know like when I have had a really good crew on for a while, I'll be like, oh, this is great. I'm literally just coming to work and it feels like my social life.
Remember like when we used to rock up to night shift and we'd all be walking across the road?
Yeah.
And we'd be like,
oh my God, yeah. You make us sound really nerdy.
Well, did a secret handshake.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It was so good.
Yeah. Even as a student, I was like, I love babies. I'm going to love special care nursery. Did my special care nursery placement. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. Yeah, it really threw me. And I was like, was it just because I didn't like the place where I was working and I didn't like the nurses there? But I did all my midwifery placement in one hospital and I didn't like my special care nursery placement at all, but I really loved my birth suite placement and I didn't mind my other area. I wasn't like, I love them, but I didn't mind the other areas like antenatal and postnatal. And then when I ended up working at a different hospital, which is funny, talking about graduates as well, I was absolutely devastated that I didn't get my first spot for my grad year, devastated. And I remember someone being like, oh, well, you know, at least you got a grad year. Like, you can't be upset because you got one. And it was like, I got my number 2, which actually in the end, you know, talking to people who went to their spot, which was my number 1, oh no, I feel so much happier that I got my number 2 spot. And then so from going from thinking I'd love neonatals, hating neonatals, and then I actually ended up loving neonatals, and then going from pretty ambivalent about birth suite, loving birth suite as a student, and then didn't mind it. And I think it was more to do with the people than the work that made me dislike it. So then I moved shifts and then loved it again because I wasn't having to work with.
I feel like I've never liked birth suite. Like it's always, I've done births that I've enjoyed, and the best thing about it is that they come back to have another baby and they're like, oh, you did my first birth. I did a cesarean, you know, like I used to do Caesar midwife a lot. And I was a Caesar midwife for this couple, and we're sitting in the day procedure unit and the father's like, oh shit, now I know where I know you from. And I was like, oh God, this is not good. He's like, you've delivered all 3 of our babies. I was like, no, what? And they were having their 3rd Caesar. So their first was when I was a student in 2nd year.
I love that.
And I ended up being in the Caesar with the midwife, but the midwife, he's like, no, the midwife let you
receive the baby.
You had just started your grad year. And he's like, you did our 2nd Caesar. He's like, I remember you. And I was like, did I? oh my God. And I was just, I couldn't believe it. So I remember thinking, so I don't have to be in birth suite delivering babies vaginally. Make an impact. Make an impact on someone. And I'm like, got a picture with them and got a picture
I
with
was
them.
just going to say that. I always love that when people are like, oh my God, the midwife, do you mind if we take a picture of you and the baby? Oh my God, I look terrible. And I'm like, are you sure you want me in a picture of that? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. Because
they want you in their album.
Yeah, although I look awful, I always, because who looks their best? I mean, some girls do look good at work, but they're an anomaly. I'm always just like, oh, how cute is this? That in 20 years, I'm going to be in someone's history sort of thing. Yeah. They probably won't remember your name, or maybe they don't remember who you are, but it's kind of cool.
And the mother was like, oh yeah, I thought you were familiar. But the father's like, I remember your voice. I remember your fringe.
Your fringe, good thing you still got it. Rocking the same haircut for like 10 years.
Knows I have a fringe and I've had it for 10 fucking years, and it seems to be like a talking point for patients. Oh, the girl with the fringe and the tattoos. I'm like, what? You're the one with the glasses?
Yeah,
I got described the other day as the short girl with all the tattoos.
And the accent, the American accent.
No, they didn't even say anything about the accent. Oh. They said something about my tattoos, which are not like huge or anything, but apparently
that's how people
that's just how what she saw. That's such a nice part of our job, that you remembered for other things. And I think one of the best things about being a midwife is that you can walk into a room and spend 10 minutes with someone and you've absolutely made their day, because they haven't liked the person before, or they haven't connected with, or you've just asked the right questions and you've turned their entire day into something brilliant.
That is saying, so I was talking to a nurse the other day who used to do a lot of aged care work, and she was saying, because in aged care, she was working in like a home. So obviously these people, they're there for a long time. So she was like, you get really close to them and you build up this relationship with them because you're seeing them every day for like 4, 5, 6, however many years. And she's like, it's really sad, when they die, because you've got to know them so well. And then she was like, well, how did you find that in midwifery? She said, because you have to be so sort of intimate with these people, basically. Yeah. And sometimes you have like 5 minutes. You can walk into a room and hand over and they'll be like, okay, quick, this woman's about to give birth. And you've got to make this sort of instant connection and relationship with someone who you've kind of known for like 2 seconds, really. Yeah. And you're like, hi, sorry, just let me put my hand,
let me just touch your bottom region.
Yeah.
Just try to express you.
Yeah. But I kind of like that. For me, I feel like I'm quite a people person, even though sometimes I hate people, but I feel like I have a people vibe. I feel like I can just talk a lot of rubbish and
make you dislike humans, because sometimes you come across,
you see things that you don't.
Yeah, you come across things that make you go, but like, seriously, come on, people, like, come on. You do come across, I think, because we work with people at a really vulnerable time. So I remember the midwives that came in and helped me do hand expressing, and that was 13 years ago. I remember them. I remember thinking, this is weird. I'm letting some woman I've never met before touch my breast.
Grab my breast.
I was like, well, if you need to do your job, you need to do your job.
It is funny. I always try and make conversation. I'm always like, this is a bit weird, but let's just go with it.
They're just like, you have a great job. And I'm like, what?
I'm always I'm like to the dads, I'm like, so you can learn. This is, especially with mum's very tired and she can't do anything. I'm like, you get on it. And I love it when you teach the dads and then you come back and the dad's like, oh, cool. And, and the dad has got like all this colostrum, like, 2 or 3 twins. And I'm like, what the hell? That's amazing. And the mum's just having a sleep and dad's just, go for it. And I'm like, this is so good.
Yeah. And it's also teaching women how to do it themselves. But like a lot of women don't like to touch their own breasts. This is something I don't understand.
Oh, but also I find when I'm teaching women, I find sometimes with, especially like hand expressing, I'm like, sometimes it is a bit hard to do it by yourself. Yeah, because if I'm like there standing in front of you, this is easy. I've got 2 hands, squeeze syringe. I was like, but when you're trying to coordinate doing it on yourself, I was like, it can be tricky.
I didn't think I would be like hand expressing women when I was in midwifery lectures. I was like, this is not.
I guess it's saying, when I tell people about that and they're like, what? And I'm like, it sounds really weird and out of context if you're not, when you say it.
I say to the women, I probably should ask you out on a date first before doing this. They usually garner a lot of laughs.
Yeah.
And it's an icebreaker. It breaks the ice.
You don't just want to go in and be like, grabbing someone's boob. I'm always just like, you know, I'm going to do this. Is this okay? Or, you know, you can do it yourself. I can show you. Like, just so that everyone's comfortable.
Most of the time, it's just like, you know what?
Yes.
Do what you
I
need to
had
do.
one fall asleep. She goes, this is relaxing. I'm like, okay.
I know Summer said that, and I was like, okay, just, you know, are you okay if I keep doing this while you're asleep? Because I don't want you to wake and be like, what the hell? And she's like, no, go for it. I need to nap. And I was like, okay, cool. You nap.
Like,
You
I
nap.
thought I'd be standing here, like, expressing a woman why she's having a
I
little
know.
hip.
But I'm like, you know, that's what you need. You've had no sleep for 48 hours. You nap. I'll get some colostrum for your baby, feed your baby, you sleep.
I remember, like, when I become a midwife, I'm going to make sure women look after themselves, even if they have a baby. And I had a woman the other day, she was just so hungry, and her husband had brought in something for her to eat, like from outside the hospital, which is probably a good thing. And I was like, well, eat your Subway or whatever. And she's like, oh no, you needed to show me how to make the formula because they were formula feeding. I was like, another time, just eat. I want you to eat. Dad's going to hold the baby. I'll go make the bottle. I can show you afterwards. It's fine. And she's like, really? But I feel bad. I'm like, eat. And I said to her, and this is the nice thing, is that you find that women, like, they listen to midwives, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. It's important that you look after yourself.
Yes.
Otherwise you can't look after that baby. And she's like, okay then.
Yeah.
It's the rapport you also created with her as well. So you probably met her and she's realised that, you know, you're helping her.
Yeah.
Like if you just went in and said eat, she'd probably be like, what? the?
Yeah. But I also love sort of in job, like it kind of shows like it's not just, although, you know, you do your time planner and you have your little list of things you got to do. Like
I never look at.
Yeah. But it's not like, you know, you might have like, 3 o'clock feed on the planner, but then things like this happen. So I like that it's not just sort of like, this is what you do at this time. Like it's really like regimented.
And I don't work that way as a person.
I think it would be tough if you were very regimented. I feel like you have to be flexible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think if you just wanted regimented stuff, just be a nurse, maybe.
You come from that nursing background. You have this, and this, and this. So it took me a while.
Systems, but isn't nursing more systematic?
Oh, it's more that this has to be done by this time. So you went in knowing that the baby needs to be fed, and it took me a long time to actually get used to it.
And very medications don't this time. Whereas I feel like on a night shift, if someone's due their 6 o'clock Panadol, they've been up all night with Grizzly Baby. I stick my head in their sleep. I am not waking them at 6 o'clock to give them Panadol.
No way.
Like, no way. They can
let
sleep.
them sleep.
I see the floor running at 7:30. Here's your obs. Here's your 8 o'clock Panadol. And
oh, God, no.
Where's
Jesus.
the Panadol?
I have to wake up before.
Now I give the Panadol when they're having breakfast or something. Or if they're awake. But it's just,
it's very different.
It's learning to adjust and
look at Penny. Look at what Carly's doing. Look.
Anyway, no, it's an amazing job and it's a lot different from what you thought. But you come in. I met a client 18 months after I looked after them who came in randomly to my new job on the other side of the city. He goes, I remember you.
Oh, really?
He goes, you've had an impact. And I'm like, I looked after you for one night. But
sometimes that's all it takes.
That's what all it takes.
They just need one person.
That's that's the beautiful part of the job. Then it's a lot more than the beautiful babies. And
well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode and our little insight into working as a midwife in the real world.
Yeah.
And so tune in next time. So we will actually be talking about COVID next time.
Ooh,
so just
hot topic
and very relevant for today. So as all the usual, if you love us, follow us on Insta, HeadOnViewPodcast, and like us, subscribe, and all that jazz that you do with potties. And we will see you next time. Bye, bitches. Bye.
And be sure to tune in next time for more laughs, thrills, and real stories from real midwives on Head On View.
I didn't know it was still recording.